To graph y equals the cotangent of x over 2, let's first of all realize that this is the cotangent of 1/2 x. And one strategy for graphing cotangent is to, first of all, find the asymptotes, fill those in, and then use those as a guide to get the rest of the graph. And so that's the strategy that I'm going to use to graph this. The cotangent has asymptotes at x equals n pi. Well, in this particular equation, we don't have an x, we have a 1/2 x. So I'm going to take 1/2 x and set that equal to n pi, and then solve for x by multiplying by 2 on both sides. So x would equal 2n pi. So to find my asymptotes, I'm going to substitute numbers in for n and see where the asymptote turns out to be. So if I, for example, were to let n be 0, 2 times 0 times pi would be 0. If I were to let n be 1, 2 times 1 times pi would be 2 pi. If I were to let n be 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and I would get 4 pi. If I were to go the other direction and let n be negative 1, then I would end up with negative 2 pi. So n can be any integer, and when I substitute that into my formula for the asymptotes, I will find where they lie. So this means that if we're thinking about graphing, so I'm going to put these key points on my graph. That we're going to have an asymptote at 0, we're going to have an asymptote at 2 pi. If we went out this other direction, we would have an asymptote at negative 2 pi. If we continued on out, we would have an asymptote out here at 4 pi. So that's where the asymptotes are going to fall for this graph. So what does the cotangent graph look like? Well, the cotangent graph is an always decreasing graph, and right in between the asymptotes, the cotangent will be equal to 0. So it's going to be 0 at pi, it's going to be 0 at 3 pi, it's going to be 0 at negative pi. In between the asymptote and that 0, to the left of the 0, it's going to be 1, and to the right of the 0, it's going to be negative 1. And then connecting that with a smooth curve and making the shape of the cotangent, I get this graph. So we're going to be 1 here, negative 1 here. And if I want to continue over on this side, I get a sketch of what my cotangent graph would look like in blue.